Hello, Canada and beyond. I'm Donnovan Bennett. I'm a host of the Waggle podcast with the CFL. And I hope, like me, you're enjoying our Grey Cup Unite coverage. And as we all know, the reason why this content has been virtual this year is because we've all been hit pretty hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. But there's actually another pandemic that we've been suffering from long before 2020, and that's a racial one. We've had a racial reckoning of late, and that is really the genesis of this very panel. The Diversity is Strength Racial Justice Roundtable. It's one of 3 different diversity-related initiatives we've got during Grey Cup Unite. And this one is brought to you, I should note, not just by the CFL, but the CFL PA. And it's important to point that out because it is a partnership between the two. And for me, we hear a lot from our athletes and our coaches during their triumphs. But for me, it's really important to also hear from them about their traumas, if they're willing. And I'm so glad that 2 different groups of players, alumni, and coaches were willing to sit down with me and talk about these issues. And that's what we have for you. The Saskatchewan Roughriders defensive coordinator, Jason Shivers, a player, he's an author, he's a poet, now a tech tycoon as he's an entrepreneur, Nate Bahar. Jackson Jeffcoat is a Winnipeg Blue Bombers defensive end. Terrence Campbell is someone who's beloved still by the Hamilton Tiger Cat faithful. Natea J, who's a good friend, he claims he's the mayor of Mississauga, but now he lives downtown in Toronto, but he gives much of that time working within the community when he's not catching passes now with the Argos. Kahari Jones is a leader and a groundbreaker as a QB, and now he's doing that as a head coach. Brian Burnham is an outstanding receiver. He's going to wow you with his knowledge and acumen as well. Another great leader as a receiver, but now he's a leader on the field as a coach, is Marquay McDaniel. And Vontae Diggs, who has a great story of how he even got to the point of being a professional athlete. And some of those life lessons will be great for us to talk about as we continue to listen and learn. So let's get right to the conversation. So I don't know about for you guys, but the killing of George Floyd in May seemed to be a turning point. Like we obviously have had, brothers and sisters that we had lost before, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, on and on and on. But for some reason, people reacted differently after seeing that video. I want to know how you guys reacted.
For my generation, those 30 to 40 years old, we got to saw what happened in LA, right, with Rodney King. When I saw the video for the first time of George Floyd, it was a repeat. I kind of went back in time to some emotions that I had kind of put away. We've heard of things happening. A lot of times you don't always get to see, but now being in this age of social media, now just to see how blatantly disrespectful they were at doing their job and the way they handled the situation and the loss of life was very upsetting, but also it put me in a place where I'm like, what's going on in the world right now?
Yeah, man, it was painful. It felt different because, we've been kind of cooped up and we're in a day and age where everything's getting recorded more and more now. Everybody's on Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. To actually watch it, not just hear about it, read about it, whatever they put on the news, to actually watch the unedited footage of George Floyd being murdered, it hit different.
Vontae, I'm watching your facial expression, listening to Brian talk about it, and it's like you're watching the video again. What are your thoughts?
Every time you talk about it, it should bring up your emotions again. It should make you really think about what's really going on in the world, with our brothers and sisters. That man lost his life, a mother lost a son, saying for his kids to be there, for him to literally call out for his life, and for you to hear that, and for you to know those men heard that, those men that held him down heard that, you know what I'm saying? To hear him calling out for his life, and they made the decision to do what they did. You feel me? So that made me feel some type of way hearing it again.
When I first saw it, I was in disbelief. He had 3 other officers with him that weren't stepping in to tell him, hey, that's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. And it's been a lot of that frustration. I felt like all my frustration with instances that I've dealt with cops came forward. And no, I don't have a dislike for cops. I mean, I have family that are police officers. Terrence is a police officer. So, and thank you for your service, brother.
You know, the fact that it was on social media and the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing now, being a police officer and being part of that, you know, that profile of like, oh, officers are just out to treat blacks bad, you know, and coming from that myself, coming from Georgia, living in Atlanta, and now living in California, and seeing how much of a difference it is for law enforcement, it was big to have that topic of discussion about what's going on, about how the police, about are we here for the people, or are we against the people? And I was very happy to have that conversation with my sergeants, with my lieutenants, my captains. You know, I just started a year ago. So for me, it's my outlook of it is from the outlook of a community member and not from the outlook of a law enforcement officer.
I still haven't seen the video. I refuse to watch it. I mean, there was a point, I think 2016, where it felt like, you know, we were all inundated with it, and it was everywhere you could see on Twitter. I'm a big Twitter guy, and, you know, every trending hashtag was just more and more scarring to the brain and to your own concept of who you are as a black man. It's hard, you know, as a man sitting here, you know, to see that outcry and hear that outcry and hear people with their hollow statements of like, I can't believe something like this would happen. And because the first thing that always comes to my mind whenever I hear things like that, what selective blindness have you decided to live with? If this disgusts you for sure, but surprises? Like, that's surprise? That's what it came to me from it.
I'm happy about the result because companies, you know, have been forced to look in the mirror. Individuals have been forced to look in the mirror, and there's some real change that's been going on. Actions have been put in place, not just statements this time. You know, companies have revised their, you know, inclusion policies and racial justice policies, and you know, it's a great sight to see. We've seen young people kind of be the leaders in this, and you know, a lot of great has come out of it.
There's going to be people who see this content, who see this panel, who say it's not necessary, that we're in a post-racial society. We had a black president. We now have a black vice president. We got black coaches. They'll say that you're making race an issue when it's not one. To those people, what would you say?
You know, to say all lives matter insinuates that at some point we didn't appreciate life and that lives didn't matter. Or to say blue lives matter would insinuate that at one point in our history, cops didn't matter. You know, that's absurd. Historically, black lives have not mattered from the start of the beginning of the United States. You know, black men and women started as slaves and had no rights and had to earn those rights and have worked harder than anybody in the United States to become citizens and follow the rules and become equal, and to still see them being murdered and for being black. You know, those people who don't believe that it's here need to open their eyes and see it.
You said the term Black Lives Matter, right? So let's double click on that. We've seen some sports leagues really lean into that phrase, put it on the floor, and we've seen others obviously stay away. So I'm gonna give you guys the platform. What does that mean to you?
Black Lives Matter to me just means Black Lives Matter just as much as any other race. That's what it means to me. A lot of people are saying, because you say Black Lives Matter, you're saying all lives don't matter. And that's not the case. To me, it means like Black lives are just as important as any other race. You see situations where, especially with the police, where, you know, it can be the same situation, but there are different outcomes based on race. And to me, that's where the Black Lives Matter comes in.
As Black people, we don't want to be singled out. We don't want to have to cause light to that. And people think it's a thing that we want to do. We're doing it because there's a need for it. But one of the things that, you know, when I came up to Canada many years ago, because there were Black quarterbacks before me, many of them, because the teams were mixed, I never felt that it was an issue for me being a Black quarterback, whereas in the US I did. And that was great. And so I knew if I succeeded, I succeeded on my own terms. If I didn't succeed, I didn't succeed on my own terms. If a coach didn't like me, it wasn't going to be because I was Black. I didn't have that feeling, and that's all anybody wants.
Can you guys give me an example or scenario in your lives where you felt anti-Black racism?
My first real experience was, I was probably 8 or 9. It was the first time I ever heard the N-word thrown at me, like as a weapon. You know, it was like four little white kids, you know, with the helmets, the bobblehead helmets on too big, and like in a circle just yelling at me. I didn't even know like how to process it, like especially being from Canada, right? And it was the first time I'd ever heard it like viciously driven into me. And I was like, somehow it sticks with an 8 or 9-year-old, like that, you know, that you're somehow seen as less because they have this one word to throw. And I don't know how to like properly, I just take some time to figure out how to express that. But like, there's something about it that people that don't look like us can say one thing and in one word, in one look, tell you that they think that everybody that looks like you at the end of the day can't be on the same level. And that's like the one that will always stick with me.
One experience that sticks out to me was back in 2013, having a vacation with my girlfriend at the time, who was Canadian, and she was white. And we were in Walmart. People kept staring at her or looking at her and frowning her face. And I was like, we're in Florida. You know, I wasn't surprised, but it was just something she had never experienced before, and she didn't know the States was as bad as it is. And I was like, yeah, down here in Florida, you're in the South. I mean, to talk about what you said earlier, what would you tell people? I would tell them to visit the South or talk to people who live in the South. Racism is very well and alive in the South.
Their experiences with discrimination is, I mean, it's just part of being Black. Or like Marquette, it's just, man, you're in Florida, you know, it is what it is. I feel like the strength it takes to shrug off discrimination, I mean, it takes a lot of strength to do that. My college football career, you're walking out of the tunnel, getting ready to play a football game. You know, your mom and your dad are up in the stands and they hear someone yell the N-word at you and calling you this and that. And, you know, you're sitting there trying to be focused for a game and, you know, keep your head in the game. But I don't know, for me, the second you hear that word in that tone used aggressively, it just, I feel like everything just stops. And I don't know how to explain, everything just kind of heats up and you get hot. And it's just the strength it takes to, like I said, just to shrug that off and continue doing what you're doing. It takes a lot of strength.
When I was 14 years old, I remember on my way, I lived in an apartment building, on my way to football practice, and I have my equipment in my hands, helmet, shoulder pads, on my way to practice. Get downstairs, get out, there's SWAT team members saying, hey, get down right now and put your hands behind your back. I'm like, wait, what's going on? I got my pads in my hands. It's not Halloween. I don't got this for show. I'm obviously not part of whatever you think I am. So like, just get down and put your hands behind your back. I do what they say. I don't want any problems. I put my hands behind my back, and they got a semi-automatic weapon jammed into my back, asking me if I'm a part of whatever is going on. Because I think those are kidnapping situation. So do you think I'm a part of a kidnapping situation with shoulder pads and a helmet in my hands? And I'm like, no, I don't know. You know what you're talking about. The process goes on. They hold me there for like 10 minutes, like waiting for the situation to play out. Eventually, they pick me up, handcuff me, put me in the back of the police car. And at this point, I live like 2 minutes from my school. So I'm in the back of the police car with my teachers rolling by, fellow students rolling by. And it was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life. Everyone in school is going to think I'm part of something, whether I am or I'm not, right? So it changed the way I looked at law enforcement and officers, because I'm like, why did that have to happen? Like, I've got some of my coaches that are officers, some of my best friends around Brandon Bridge, an officer, and I love them to death. But from that point forward, I was always like, why did this have to happen?
2016, I was driving from Colorado to Dallas, and I got into Texas. A cop car pulls up behind me. He doesn't put his lights on, nothing. I'm going the speed limit and everything. So he pulls me over. I have a concealed carry license, so I'm able to carry a firearm in my car. I'm able to carry it when it's concealed on my hip. I'm a Texas boy. He goes to the other side of the car and says, "Have you been smoking in this car?" And I'm like, "No." I was like, "What is the reason for you pulling me over?" He's like, "Well, you have an obscured license plate." I was like, "An obscured license plate?" He's like, "You seem worried, sir." I was like, "Yeah, I am nervous. Black men have been getting shot and killed for no reason. I would be nervous to getting taken out of my car when I'm just trying to get back to Dallas." This was a case of DWB, as we call it, driving while black. I mean, as a black man driving, you get pulled over for little things. I saw it a lot as my dad. With my dad, he would get pulled over. He had nice rims on his Lincoln Navigator at the time, and he'd get pulled over all the time. And they would never tell him what. And they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry." When he say he's Jim Jeffcoat, "Sorry, go along with your dad."
Going into a college visit at Ball State University, we stopped at an IHOP. We walked in the IHOP unknowing that there was no one that looked like us nowhere near around. And we're sitting there looking around, and when I tell you, you can hear a mouse walking in that place. It was one of the most freakishly scary moments of my life where I really, for a second, did not think we was going to walk out because, as B said, the look of disgust was on every single person's face in that facility. And my boy's dad literally grabbed both of us. We were 17, 18 at the time by our hands and escorted us out to make sure that, you know, everything was gravy. And we actually took ourselves home right after that. That was one of my first moments when I was in Muncie to see an adult go through an experience. You know, I've never had an adult feel what I felt in my stomach, you know what I'm saying? Feel that pain in your chest and your words get stuck in your throat moment, you feel me? Like you don't really know what's gonna happen type moment. And for him to react the way he did, that kind of showed me the ropes of how you're supposed to react, you know what I'm saying? You don't really necessarily always have to resort to dropping down to their ignorance, you know what I'm saying, for lack of better words. And that's really what the word means if you look it up. It means ignorant person. And that's what they were calling us to degrade us because we weren't good enough to learn how to read or anything else back in those times. But little do you know, a lot of us are great doctors today. A lot of us are great dentists. A lot of us are playing in the football field. We're making millions. We're taking care of our family the way they didn't want us to do. And that's the best type of revenge we can get on them right now, to do all the things they said we couldn't. You feel me? And for those who still say that we can't, we just gonna have to keep showing them. Like when Barack was coming out for president, he said, yes, we can, and we still will. You feel me? This ain't nothing different. You feel me? We just gonna have to keep leveling up every single time that they want to keep shutting us down. And that's what we have been doing. And that's what all this Black Lives Matters movement is about. It's for us to keep leveling up, for us to keep having Black excellence, for us to keep doing what we're doing because we on the right track. Period. Point blank in the discussion.
Yo.
Preach,
You
preach,
dropped the
yeah.
mic on that one.
I think we all can give that a round of applause.
This conversation is a little heated, man.
No, but
Absolutely.
I love that you said that, and I love your passion, and it's important. Jackson, did you have a reaction when you started to see the press releases being put out by companies, the PR statements being put out by different white athletes? How did you respond to that?
At first, I was excited. It was good to see, but then I quickly realized that some of these are just to show good face, so they look better. And I thought that I'm gonna watch a lot of these companies and see what they actually do, and see if they stick to their word. That they're not just, for everybody knows all the black squares that were put up on Instagram. Everybody's putting up black squares saying they were with Black Lives, and I wanted to see, like, is this just a symbol, or is there going to be real change that comes?
I agree 100%. Like everybody, you're gonna say what's the best thing to say on face cover. You're gonna say whatever. Anybody who's the governor, the mayor, running these businesses, you're gonna say whatever you have to say to keep that crowd coming in. You are running a business. It's not personal, it's business. But are you really hiring more people of color? Are you really taking time out to get to know the culture? Are you really taking time out to understand and open up your heart to realize what's going on, to be a part of change? How are you really becoming part of change? I'm big on that because I'm frontline protests going on. I'm standing right there in the front, people yelling, talking crazy. Oh, N-word this, why are you doing this, working for the white man? But what are you doing to make a change?
We often ask the oppressed to find the solutions for the oppressor, where we don't do that in any other walk of life. We're trying to, figure out this COVID-19 situation. We don't just ask a bunch of people who have COVID-19. We talk to scientists and doctors and politicians and policymakers. But for this conversation,
you mind if I interrupt you? I'm sorry. You my
yeah,
dog.
no, go ahead.
But who are we supposed to talk to? Who are we supposed to ask these questions to? Because as far as from my knowledge, when I go step to someone, they can't give me the answer that I can give them. You talking about the oppressors? I mean, the oppressors are people that don't want to talk to us. The oppressors are people with billions and billions of dollars that never come to the places that that we need to help so we can to really step forward. You feel me? So who are we supposed to talk to? They gonna send somebody else to talk to us. They're not gonna talk to us directly.
What role do your non-Black teammates play in this discussion as allies? Where should they be in terms of finding solutions? Because in the locker room, you guys say you're all one, right? You're all team, you're all family. So what role do they have to play?
Well, just something that happened here in Calgary. I went out to a rally. Some of the coaches got together, and Dave Dickinson and Pete Costanza were two of the other guys with us. And just for them going, showing up, just showed me that they cared. I mean, I text both of them after. I was just like, thank you for showing up. I know both of you guys aren't racist or don't see color, but the fact that you showed up to this rally when you didn't really have to showed me you cared. And then one thing they said to me is they just want to understand, right? They want to understand what's going on. They want to understand how they can help.
Biggest thing for me is communication, keeping the lines of communication open to everybody. It's hard to hate somebody when you know them, when you know that they've gone through the same things that you are, when they know that you're a human being just like them, and just keeping those lines of communication open is big. And so if we can continue to do that as a sports community and keep showing good examples of people working together for a common goal, then I think we have a chance.
For me, I think they have a big role to stand up, but they also have a big role to look into their own inner circles that sometimes doesn't have as many, and to explain and to bring them along to understand what's right and what's not right, what's the right train of thought and what's not the right train of thought. That seems hard for them to be able to turn to their own people and say that, but then they got to think about, well, my friend, supposedly friend, is doing it versus a whole culture. So, in my mind, I think they have a big role, players, coaches, CEOs, to stand up for what they truly believe in, and that, the people that they're around all the time, unless they're being fake. And I'm just going to believe that. I can't believe that it's somebody that's going to be smiling in my face, going around talking, saying something else backwards. I just don't believe that in sports. Maybe the other panelists may have seen it different.
If something was to happen between a player and coach, or between players where it involved race, everybody would step up and handle that. Everybody would be like, bro, like, you tripping, bro. Like, no, don't do that. Like, that ain't cool. We ain't going for that. And that's how sports help make you that type of person, or make you better in speaking up. I might have some kids that I'm trying to talk to, I'm trying to reach to, that's been acting out. I'm trying to talk to them, and I'm in my full uniform, and they're not hearing me. Then I'm like, hey, bro, I played pro football for 6 years. They be like, what? You play pro football? Like, now I caught their attention. Now I got their eye. Now it's like, oh, damn, so you play pro football. Now I roll my sleeves up, and I show them I'm fully tatted up. It's like, dang. Like, you a police officer? Like, how? Google, you Google me right now. You type my name in on Google and see. Now everybody's attentive. Now I have every single kid out there attention. Everybody's listening to every single word that come out of my mouth. But when I was just police officer that lives in San Jose trying to talk to you, it's like, oh, bro, you don't know. You don't get it, bro. You don't understand. So I'm telling you, as an athlete, you play a huge role in that.
Not only to put words on the court or words on the field, but to have actions behind it, to figure out what's needed for change and how to go about that process. I think that's important. Don't just talk about it, be about it. Let's change. Help us change. If you support us or listen to us and have any compassion, help us. Help us grow and change.
I love what the WNBA girls did. They were front and center, even above and beyond what the NBA guys were doing. They came out with shirts with holes in them. But no, time and time again, the WNBA women, they don't get the shine, similar to the CFL, because for whatever reason, they don't get their shine, but they definitely deserve it.
I think the CFL has done a great job just with, the whole diversity of strength campaign and making the voices heard of the Black players in the league, and not just the Black players, but the brown players. CFL going global, the Mexican players who came up. I just think people need to continue to be open to changing that outlook on life and changing that view.
You look at training camps, and we all agree that Canadian quarterbacks are slow in development compared to their American counterparts. So the CFL has created a way for Canadian quarterbacks to develop every training camp in the CFL settings, right? Why can't we have somebody come in, to learn, a member of the minority to learn coaching, to get more coaching, or somebody in the front office in that same type of role? Every training camp, create an internship. I know money's tight, but this is just as important. Create a position where we can get more members of the coaching staff or front office in positions of power, so we can have more representations.
There should be some type of internship to find out about being a GM. A guy that shares my name, but on the other side, Roy Shivers was one of the first Black GMs. Ed Hervey, I got to work for him. He won the first Grey Cup, first Black GM. So I've had a chance to see some of those guys. Pinball is another guy, right? So I've seen some of these people, but we need those people to start training the next generation. And it's not like we're saying, there's not other people who shouldn't get interned too. We just know that it just doesn't happen that fast for people of our skin tone, our color, or whatnot.
This has been an education for me, and I'm someone who's really passionate about the topic. So thank you. I mean, you guys are all kings. You educated us with your candor and with your expertise. But it's also important that the conversation doesn't stop here. So anyone who's watching, who's consuming, thank you. But interact with us, because we don't want it just to be a one-way conversation. Use the hashtag GCUnite. Hit up our social handles at CFL, at CFLPA. Mine is at Donnovan Bennett. Keep this conversation going, and continue to take care of yourself and others. Thank you, fellas. Appreciate you.
I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. Good stuff.
Good
Seeing you guys.
seeing you guys.
Peace.